Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 3 of Digital Organization. Now, I know. It's been a while since I've recorded this video. I actually meant to make this video within a couple weeks of the last one. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen last video, you gotta check it out, understand the context. Now, just so that you know, this video is split into two parts. The first part is I'm going to go into like the really nerdy server bit of it. And the other part is the actual digital organization, like how I'm organizing all my things. So Aylan, Aylan, my server, right? It works, but I've set it up at least 6 times, 6 different installations of the operating system. And as you can tell, I have a new base of operations. I moved, okay? Different place. Now, so of course I had to set it up again. But it's working. I'm using this old laptop. I've got Ubuntu server running on it. Before I had Debian 12. But Ubuntu server so far has been great, and it's under my bed. I'll show you a little video of it under my bed, plugged in with an Ethernet cable, and it's just chilling down there. And I've configured it so that, you know, the battery of course never charges to 100%. It's just kind of chilling at 80 all the time. It's got the Ethernet cable, and the way that I set it up was just kind of well, you install the operating system with a thumb drive, right? Get it booted up, and then you get the bare necessities and then connect to it via SSH, right? And the idea of that is I can connect to that computer from my laptop. So now I can open my terminal, connect to it. You know what? Matter of fact, let me show you. I hit the SSH, right? And then the password to the server. And then this right here is the terminal, but for the laptop that is sitting under my bed, the server, Aylan, right? Making it. So there was a lot of trial and error when it came to the server, configuring everything. And like I said, I tried it 6 different times that I would just run into an error. And if I, of course, don't know how to do all this on my own, I'm doing this with AI, like I explained previously, where I'm just kind of telling it what I want and it's doing it. But I definitely learned a lot along the way of how, like, what networking is and like what kind of software you can do. Now the big question I want to answer is, what do I use my server for? I talked in the previous episode about an NAS, kind of like cloud storage, and I use it for that. It's pretty cool. I use software called Nextcloud. Not sponsored by Nextcloud or anything, but super cool thing. Highly recommend. And essentially what that does is it lets me use my server as a cloud thing, and I can put files and whatever on there. And it's pretty fast. It works. Of course, the bottleneck is my own network. DNS cache with Pi-hole. That's what I'm using it as a DNS cache, kind of like the idea of where like the whole internet, like a library or whatever. And then I've got like my favorite websites saved at the front desk. And it's also an ad blocker, so it kind of blocks out the ads. So we got Nextcloud, DNS cache, / ad blocker, which is pretty cool. And then VPN. Use Tailscale for a VPN, which I can connect my phone to, the laptop, right? Which allows me to connect to the server from anywhere in the world. And then I can like troubleshoot server stuff even when I'm not connected to my home network. Very awesome and very necessary to have the Tailscale VPN. And they're just kind of nice to have the VPN overall. Now, the other big thing that I use the server for is for syncing. Okay. I use Synthing. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but I'll show you it here. This app to sync files from my laptop to my phone for Obsidian. Now, I'll explain to you what Obsidian is in a second, but a brief explanation is it's a note-taking app, but all of the notes are saved locally on my computer. And Obsidian itself has the option for it to sync automatically. Like, you pay Obsidian, I think it's about $5 a month, and they'll sync it across your devices. And I used that for 1 month, but then I was like, I'm doing self-hosting. I have to do this all myself. So I'm using Obsidian Sync, where it's syncing the file on Obsidian or on my laptop across my phone or whatever device I want to add. Okay, so there we go. Those are the 4 main things that I use the server for. Nextcloud, cloud storage, DNS cache / ad blocker using Pi-hole, Tailscale VPN so that I can actually use the syncing service, actually troubleshoot from anywhere in the world, and just having a VPN. And 4, syncing Obsidian. Now it's time for the digital organization update, okay? This is like the actual organization bit. All right, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is Obsidian. Previously, for my note-taking, I was using Notion, and Notion is great. Wonderful app, tons of databases, lots of cool stuff, and I used Notion for quite a while. But I have converted, if you will, to Obsidian for a couple of reasons. Reasons number 1, it's a lot easier to self-host. I don't even think it's possible to self-host Notion. Everything is in the cloud, right? It's free. Like, if you're just one user and you want to sync your files between your phone and your computer and other devices, it's free and like collaborating, but it's all in the cloud kind of thing. And number 2 is I, of course, am obsessed with organizing stuff. Hence, I made the series. And Obsidian kind of solves that problem, kind of, in a way, with these links, as you can see. They're like, each of these dots is a note, and they're kind of linked together, right? So if I open a file, for example, say my journal, right? Of course, I'm not going to be able to show you this kind of stuff because lots of private information there, but I can make links to other things that I'm doing. Like, for example, Aylan, the search, and it just kind of implies that you can remove the idea of labeling and categorizing and putting them into different files, and everything is like super organized, crazy stuff. So it kind of solves that, and it kind of just frees up your mind so I don't have to think so much about organizing and where stuff goes. It just kind of naturally, stuff connects together. And when I'm like, oh man, this idea reminds me of this, and blah, 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 everything's connected. In my journal, I wrote about this, who now, who what. And it just kind of frees up your mind so you can be a little bit more creative. And then the other thing is AI, right? So Notion has its own AI built into it, but it's not free. You can only have a certain amount of prompts. And let me transition to another cool thing. Is since everything is hosted locally, like each one of these notes is a file on my laptop, on my computer, I can use a cool thing called Gemini CLI. Well, you can use any AI, but I use Gemini just because I've already kind of got a lot of the Google ecosystem. And let me show you what that looks like, okay? So I'll open my terminal here, have my Obsidian on one side, right? And then paste a little command right here, maybe. There we go. And this file, oh, I'm in the way, sorry. This file right here is where I store it, where I store the entire Obsidian database, right? So now the terminal knows I'm talking about the Obsidian database. Let me open up for you again, right? And then I hit Gemini You can, if you don't know what I'm doing, you can look up a terminal or look up a tutorial on how to get Gemini CLI, Gemini command line interface. But so now I've given it the context of my Obsidian database, open Gemini, and this is just straight up the AI Gemini LLM chat box kind of thing. But the only difference is you can give it permission to edit files within your your computer, right? So if I go to Obsidian over here, right, and I open one like, what should I open? My dictionary. That's a good one. I love learning new words, and I'll have the AI create quick definitions, right? So I don't have to keep looking up the definition of these are some of my favorite words, right? And then over on the Gemini, I can give it context, be like at dictionary, and ask that how many unique words are defined. And it just has access to this. And you can do this for anything. I'll just go into like a brainstorm mode, and I'll just be like talking about something in my notes about this, like these ideas or concepts, and then I'll tag it in Gemini and be like, yo, what is this thing called? It's like, oh, you're talking about this. And it'll give me definitions. Or if I'm just like totally scatterbrained, it'll organize things for me. And just like the journaling is a lot easier, and it just kind of helps glue everything together, right? And I'm not using AI to replace the creativity. It's just there to eliminate all the mundane, repetitive tasks, like stuff that and my brain is the part for the creativity kind of thing and just thinking out loud. So now it's doing its thing, looking at them, processing or whatever. Oh, it created a Python script. Look at this. So then it's saying permission to Python script to extract the words from the markdown table. And I can choose to give it permission to do that, hit enter. Yeah, sure. Create a Python script to find it or whatever. Yeah, execute it. Go for it. Give it a thumbs up a few more times. Define 205 unique words, right? And yeah, pretty cool. And the really cool thing, now I'm not saying that you have to do this, but if you ever put your entire journal into Obsidian, you can have it like, it just has so much context because a lot of AI is limiting in so many ways that it just doesn't understand the whole context. But if I plug in my journal and everything that I've written about myself, then if I tell it to, if I give it permission, it could have access to that. So I'd be like, who is Elric? That's me. And then I can be like, you can look at this and journal. And then it can give you an overview of who I am. And there we go. We got a quick overview of like key life events that it has. And then of course, the more that I write about myself in the journal, the more it has information. And a lot of what I do in my journal is about self-improvement, setting goals. So there's a little section about that. And there's a timeline and an overview of who I am. And it's really cool. And it'll help me remember things that I've completely forgot, people that I've completely forgot about, just like quick instances. If I've ever written it down in my journal, then it's there. It's super useful, super cool. So highly recommend Obsidian if you're just kind of like trying to get information down and you use a laptop or a desktop or whatever, and you can get Gemini CLI. Super cool. That's where I'm at right now. Kind of. And then Notion works cool too. If you're just like on a phone and you like the idea of databases, not hating on Notion. Notion's super cool. I just feel like Obsidian has worked a little bit better for me. Now, I can't talk about digital organization and how I'm staying organized now without talking about my budget sheet. So here is just a list of everything that I purchased ever in the past year. and I keep track of it, put it into a category. I give it a star rating on how I feel, how necessary it was, and what category it's in, and when I got it, right? And then I can put it into, get a little bit mad of like where I've spent my money in the past year or in the past month, and just kind of get an idea of where my spending is going, and if I'm spending on things that I consider are useful or not, which is super cool. And it's a little bit different from just keeping a budget, because I don't have a budget in the traditional sense where like, oh, I can only spend this much in this category. Rather, I'm tracking where my money is going, so I'm a little bit more conscious of the money in the first place. So that's been super useful, super cool. And I also do this for riding my bike. I keep track of how far I go every day, Strava, copy and paste the miles, and I created a little formula to track. You know what? Might as well just show you at this point. I've been doing a lot more bike riding, of course, so this has been very fun. I keep track of how many miles here, let me zoom in a little bit for you. How many miles I'm traveling in a week, an estimated fuel economy for the car, average gas prices. So the idea is, how much money am I saving by riding my bike instead of traveling by car? That's the idea. And then I've spent over here $325 on the bicycle, and I've saved roughly $35 so far riding my bike. So I've got $289 to go, which, if my math is right, and the fuel economy of my car really is 18 miles per gallon, and gas prices are $3.60 a gallon, then I would need to travel 1,400 miles before my bike is paid off, where I've saved the amount of money that I spent on the bike. So that's a really cool thing. Now, what you can look forward to in the next episode of Digital Organization is, well, you know what? I think my perspective on AI is going to be its own video. That's going to be a big deal. Just an overview of how I see AI and why I think it's underused and why we need to be super careful with AI. That's going to be its own video. But within digital organization, I have this idea for a project where I'm tracking a lot more things than just this and finding patterns within my life. But I'm not sure if I want to do that, because that's going to be a lot to do. It's going to be a little bit of an experiment. So just keep your eye on that. And then, of course, the server is always going to be expanding. That's going to be cool. Let me know if you have any suggestions whatsoever. That would be wonderful. And what do you want me to cover a video on? How can I make better YouTube videos? Please tell me how. I greatly appreciate you watching this video of me just blabbering. This was Digital Organization 3. Please tune in next time. And don't forget like and subscribe. What else would I say?